The night sky above Aloria was unlike anything on Earth. 2 moons glowed softly, silver light falling over towering crystal spires and streets made of shimmering glass. Ethan stood alone in the middle of the alien city, his heart beating. Like a drum in his chest, he held a single crystal flower in his hand, a rare bloom from the deadly caves of Marin. It wasn't just a gift, it was a symbol of everything he had risked for her. 6 years ago, Ethan was just another ordinary human among countless alien races in the Galactic Union. Humans were often seen as fragile and weak, species barely crawling into the stars. But Ethan wanted to change that image. He trained harder than anyone else, took on impossible missions, and survived places where even the strongest alien soldiers would not dare to go. And all of it was for her. Her name was Lyra. She was unlike anyone he had ever known, tall, graceful, with luminous silver eyes that seemed to hold the entire galaxy within them. She was a diplomat of the Lyrian Empire, a race of beings who were considered one of the most elegant and superior in the galaxy. To Ethan, she was perfection itself. When she spoke, it was like music. When she smiled, it was like starlight. And when she looked at him, he dared to believe she might see more than just a human. Tonight, he would tell her the truth. Ethan's palms were sweaty as he walked up the crystal stairs leading to her private garden. The air smelled faintly of moonlight and rare flowers. Lyra stood there, dressed in a flowing gown that shimmered like liquid silver. She turned at the sound of his footsteps, her expression calm but unreadable. "Ethan," she said softly. "Why are you here?" He swallowed hard. I needed to see you. Have something to say." Lyra tilted her head slightly, waiting. Ethan took a deep breath. "I know I'm human," he began, his voice trembling. "I know to your people, we're less. But I've seen the way you look at me sometimes. I've felt something between us, and I can't keep it inside anymore. Lyra, He held out the crystal flower, his hands shaking. "I love you." Moment, silence. Just the soft hum of the alien garden. Then Lyra laughed. It wasn't cruel, but it was cold. "Distant, Ethan," she said, her silver eyes glinting in the moonlight. "You are brave, you are kind, but you are human. Do you understand what that means to my people? To me, you are fragile. You will age in the blink of an eye. You will die while I remain unchanged. And even now, you are weak compared to those who truly matter in this galaxy." Her words struck him like a blade. "I cannot love you," she continued, her tone firm but not unkind. "I cannot bind myself to someone who will vanish like dust while I endure. You should not have come here." Ethan felt the world crumble. Beneath him, he wanted to speak, to argue, to beg her to see him as more than just a human. But the look in her eyes told him it was useless. He dropped the crystal flower. It shattered against the glass floor, scattering into 1,000 tiny pieces. "I understand," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Without another word, he turned and walked away. Each step felt heavier than the last. By the time he reached the edge of the garden, Lyra had already turned her back to him. That night, Ethan made a silent vow. If humanity was seen as weak, then he would become stronger than anyone could. Imagine, not for her, not anymore, but for himself, and for every human who had ever been told they were not enough. The stars above Aloria watched silently as a human heart broke, and something far stronger began to grow in its place. Ethan left Aloria that same night. He boarded the small human transport ship without looking back. The cold rejection replayed in his mind like an echo that wouldn't fade. Lyra's words, fragile, weak, unworthy, burned deep into his soul. But instead of breaking him completely, those words planted something else inside him. Quiet, burning fire. Humans were underestimated in the galaxy. They were called soft-boned, short-lived. A race of dreamers who stumbled into the stars by luck. Even on the Galactic Council, humans held little influence. To most alien species, they were like children playing with dangerous toys. Ethan had always hated that, but now it became personal. If she couldn't see his worth, then he would make the entire galaxy see it. He joined the Interstellar Defense Corps, a military force that operated beyond politics. It was where the bravest and most reckless soldiers went human or alien. Many never came back. Ethan didn't care. He wanted to face the worst the galaxy could throw at him. The training was brutal. The Corps didn't coddle humans. The instructors were towering reptilian warriors, silicon-bodied machines, and telepathic species that could invade your mind. They mocked Ethan at first. Your bones will snap in zero-G combat. Your heart is too weak to survive deep space. Exposure? A human? You'll last a week. But Ethan didn't quit. He refused to quit. When his body broke, he healed. When he failed, he tried again. He learned to fight with weapons he had never seen before. Learned alien languages, alien tactics, even alien ways of thinking. While others relied on their natural strength, Ethan relied on something far rarer: adaptability. Humans could learn. Humans could endure. Humans could surprise you. Months turned into years. He was sent on missions no one expected him to survive. He scouted a black hole research station overrun by mind parasites. He fought in the frozen trenches of Zelkar against acid-blooded beasts. Even rescued an alien senator from a collapsing moon with nothing but a damaged shuttle and his sheer will to live. Slowly, whispers began to spread through the Corps. They called him the human ghost. Because even when he was outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched, Ethan came back. Sometimes limping, sometimes bleeding. But he always came back. One day after a particularly brutal mission on a planet consumed by endless storms, Ethan stood alone on the observation deck of his ship. The lightning outside illuminated his scarred face, stared at his reflection in the glass. He didn't recognize the man staring back. He wasn't the naive human who once stood in a crystal garden begging for love. He was something else now, harder, sharper, stronger, and yet in the deepest part of his heart, still remembered her. Lyra, even after all these years, her face sometimes came to him in dreams. But now, instead of love, he felt only a distant ache. She had been right about one thing: humans didn't live as long as Lyrines. But she was wrong about everything else. Weak. Fragile. No. He had survived things no alien diplomat could even imagine, and the galaxy was starting to notice. The Galactic Union began sending requests for Ethan personally. He became a symbol of humanity's hidden strength, a reminder that even the smallest spark could light a fire no one expected. But deep inside, Ethan knew this was just the beginning. Something darker was moving in the outer sectors. Rumors of a rising empire, the Kral Dominion, a species known for devouring worlds, were spreading like wildfire. The galaxy was about to change. Ethan didn't know then that their invasion would bring him face to face with the past he thought he had left behind. The galaxy was no longer at peace. It began with whispers. Mining colonies along the outer rim went silent. Trade ships vanished without distress signals. Patrol fleets found only empty stations, scorched and lifeless. At first, the Galactic Council dismissed it as pirates or local uprisings, but soon the whispers turned into screams. Entire star systems were falling in days. The enemy had a name: the Kral Dominion. The Kral were not like other alien species. They were living war machines, towering insect-like creatures with obsidian armor and glowing red eyes. They didn't negotiate. They didn't enslave. They consumed. Worlds were stripped bare, their resources drained, their people either slaughtered or harvested for experiments. The Kral left nothing but silence behind. Even the strongest civilizations were terrified. The proud Zelkar legions fell in a single campaign. The crystalline Aerithans, who once claimed their technology was unstoppable, were wiped out within months. No one could match the Kral's speed, strength, or sheer hunger for conquest. Ethan heard the news while returning from a mission. He watched the hollow projections of burning worlds, the panicked cries of survivors pleading for help. He felt something tighten in his chest. He knew this was more than just another war. This was the kind of threat that could erase entire histories, including humanity's. But then, another report reached him. The Lyrian Empire, Lyra's home, was under attack. At first, Ethan froze. He hadn't thought of Lyra in years. She belonged to a past he had buried under missions, battles, and scars. But the moment he saw the images of Lyrian cities burning, something inside him stirred. The same beautiful crystal spires where he had once stood were now crumbling into dust. The Lyrans had always been proud, untouchable, although now their defenses were failing. Their elegant diplomats were fleeing in desperation. The once unshakable empire was on its knees. For a brief moment, Ethan felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of him thought they deserved it, their arrogance, their belief that some species were above others. But another part of him, the part that still remembered the way Lyra's eyes had glimmered like starlight, couldn't ignore the truth. Innocent lives were being lost. Children, families, entire cities all reduced to ashes. He received a priority mission from the Interstellar Defense Corps. The Krau were advancing toward the central sectors. They needed elite teams to stall the Dominion's forces, while the Council prepared a larger response. Ethan was chosen to lead one of these missions, but this time, the battlefield would be near Lyrian space. As his ship approached the sector, he stared at the distant stars. He didn't know if Lyra was still alive. He didn't even know if she remembered him, but a small, stubborn thought whispered in his mind, what if she needs help? The ship dropped out of hyperspace into chaos. Lyrian defense fleets were scattered, their sleek silver ships torn apart by the black, jagged vessels of the Krau. Space itself looked like it was bleeding, explosions, fire, and drifting debris everywhere. Ethan's crew looked to him for orders. Get us through that mess, he said firmly. We're heading planetside. We'll help whoever's left. As they descended, Ethan saw the surface of the Lyrian capital. The beautiful gardens and crystal palaces were nothing but shattered ruins. Krau ground forces marched through the streets like a tide of nightmares. Then, through the haze of destruction, a faint distress signal cut through the static. To anyone. This is Lyra of the Lyrian High Council. We need help. It's a Krau. Inside the Citadel, please. Ethan froze. It was her voice. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. 6 years of silence. 6 years of pretending she didn't matter. Now, in the middle of a war zone, she was calling for help. His crew stared at him, waiting, sir. Do we respond? Ethan's hands tightened into fists. He could ignore it. He could let the past die here. But deep inside, he knew he wouldn't. Set a course for the Citadel, he said quietly. We're going in. The ship dove into the burning skies, straight toward the ruins where Lyra was waiting. The dropship roared through the smoky skies of the Lyrian capital. Fire consumed the once beautiful city, and the air was thick with the smell of burning crystal and metal. Krau warships circled above like vultures, their black holes blocking out the pale light of the twin moons. Ethan stood at the front of the troop bay, his hand resting on the railing as his crew prepared for a hot landing. Sir. The Citadel is heavily surrounded, his pilot warned. If we go in, we may not get out. Ethan's eyes narrowed as he scanned the holographic map. The Citadel was the last stronghold still broadcasting a signal. If Lyra was there, she was in the heart of the chaos. He hesitated only for a second before replying. We're going in anyway, he said. His voice was calm, but inside, his heart was racing. As the dropship descended, flashes of memory came uninvited. Lyra standing in her moonlit garden, silver eyes looking at him without warmth. Her words fragile, weak, human. He had sworn to leave her behind. Yet here he was, flying straight into hell for her. The ship shook violently as Krau anti-air fire tore through the clouds. Brace! The pilot shouted. A moment later, they smashed down onto the plaza outside the Citadel. The ramp dropped, and chaos greeted them. Krailed soldiers, towering insectoid monsters with bladed limbs, were swarming the steps of the Citadel. Lyrian defenders, elegant but exhausted, fired desperately from broken barricades. Ethan's team stormed out, guns blazing. His plasma bolts lit up the plaza as humans and aliens fought side by side. Ethan moved like a shadow, precise and relentless. His rifle barked with deadly accuracy, dropping Krail after Krail. They pushed, forward, step by step, until they reached the Citadel doors. 2 Lyrian guards, wounded and barely standing, looked at him in shock. A human? One gasped. You You came? Is Lyra inside? Ethan asked sharply. The guard nodded weakly. She's in the throne chamber. They're breaching it now. Hurry. Without another word, Ethan charged inside. The citadel was unrecognizable. Once a place of beauty, it was now filled with smoke, rubble, and the echoes of battle. Ran through shattered halls until he reached the throne chamber. Doors they were sealed, but he could hear the sound of claws scraping on crystal. The crowd were breaking through. He planted a breaching charge and blew the doors open. Inside. The scene made him stop for just a heartbeat. Lyra was there. She was kneeling beside the throne, her elegant silver gown torn and stained. Her once perfect hair was matted with dust and blood. Her luminous eyes, he had dreamed about once, were now filled with fear. Around her, a handful of surviving Lyranes tried to form a last line of defense. But it was clear they wouldn't hold for long. When Lyra saw him, her breath caught. Ethan, she whispered, as if she didn't believe he was real. For a moment, neither of them moved. 6 years of silence stretched between them like a void. Then the ceiling shattered as a massive crawl warrior dropped into the chamber with a deafening roar. Stay behind me, Ethan shouted. He leapt forward, rolling under the creature's bladed limbs. His rifle barked, each shot finding a weak spot in the armored exoskeleton. The crow screeched, thrashing wildly, but Ethan didn't stop until it fell in a pool of black icy. Who are? The room fell silent, except for the heavy breathing of the survivors. Ethan turned to face Lyra. She stared at him, her eyes wide, her lips trembling. For the first time in her life, she looked small, fragile. I never thought I'd see you again, she said softly. Her voice cracked, breaking the perfect composure she had always held. I was wrong about you, about humans. I was wrong about everything. Ethan's jaw tightened. He didn't answer. He wasn't sure what to say. She stepped closer, her gaze filled with a strange mix of shame and hope. Ethan, please.
Help me.
Help my people. I can't stop them alone. For a moment, he looked at her the way she once looked at him, distant, unreadable. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and steady. I didn't come here for you. Came because it was the right thing to do. But I'll help. Not for you, Lyra. For the innocent lives still left in this city. Her eyes glistened with unspoken words. She wanted to say more, but there was no time. Outside, the thunder of more Krau soldiers approaching echoed through the halls. Ethan turned toward the doors. If you want to survive, stay close. We're not done yet. For the first time in her life, Lyra followed a human's lead. The corridors of the citadel shook as another wave of Krau warriors smashed through the outer defenses. Their screeches echoed through the halls like a chorus of nightmares. Ethan moved fast, leading the small group of survivors through the ruined palace. His rifle was ready, his senses sharp. Every shadow felt like a threat. Behind him, Lyra followed in silence. Her once proud posture was gone. She looked nothing like the elegant diplomat he had met 6 years ago. She was exhausted, trembling, her silver eyes dull with fear and regret. She kept glancing at Ethan as if she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. Finally, when they paused in a dark hallway, she whispered, "Why did you come back? After what I said, after how I treated you, why risk your life for me?" Ethan didn't look at her. He checked his rifle, then scanned the hallway for hostiles. "I didn't come for you," he said quietly. "I came for the people who can't fight for themselves, for the ones who don't deserve to die because of someone else's pride." Lyra lowered her gaze, ashamed. She wanted to say she was sorry, but she knew it wouldn't be enough. She had mocked his humanity, called him weak, and yet here he was risking everything to save her. The group reached a sealed blast door. Beyond it was the last functioning transport bay that could evacuate the survivors. But the door's control panel was offline. It's destroyed in the bombardment. "We can't get through," one of the Lyrian guards said in panic. "We're trapped." Ethan knelt beside the panel, examining it. "I can reroute the power manually," he said, "but I'll need someone to hold the access line open in the generator room." Is it safe? A guard asked. Ethan looked at him grimly. No. Whoever stays in the generator room will have to stay behind. Once I open the blast door, the backup shield will trap them inside. A heavy silence fell. No one spoke. Volunteered. Lyra's lips parted slightly. She seemed about to step forward, but Ethan raised his hand. I'll do it, he said. Lyra's eyes widened. No, you can't. If you stay behind, I'll give you a chance to escape. Ethan interrupted. His voice was steady, but there was a quiet sadness in it. That's all that matters right now. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. Why? Why would you sacrifice yourself for us, for me, after everything I did to you? Ethan finally met her gaze. His eyes were cold, but there was a glimmer of something deeper. Because this isn't about me, or you. It's about doing what's right, something you used to believe in before you let pride blind you. Lyra's breath hitched. His words cut through her like a blade not in cruelty, but in truth, without. Waiting for a reply, Ethan turned and headed toward the generator room. The Lyrian guard stared after him, unsure whether to follow. Lyra took a step forward. Wait, she called. He paused at the doorway, glancing back just once. I'll open that door, he said. When it unlocks, you run. Just don't waste time. Don't look back. And then he was gone. Inside the generator room, sparks flew from damaged circuits. Ethan worked quickly, reconnecting power lines and rerouting energy to the blast door. Alarms blared as Krail forces breached another level of the Citadel. He could hear their inhuman roars getting closer. Meanwhile, in the hallway, Lyra pressed her hand against the cold wall, her heart pounding. For the first time in her life, she felt powerless. She had always believed strength came from status, from superiority, but now she saw what true strength looked like. It was in the human who never gave up, even when the universe told him he was weak. A sudden rumble shook the floor. The blast door unlocked with a loud hiss. It's open. The guards shouted. Lyra hesitated. She didn't want to leave him. But the sound of approaching Krail soldiers reminded her that staying would doom everyone. She turned to the others. Go. Get to the transport bay. The survivors ran through the opening. Lyra was the last to step through, but before leaving, she whispered under her breath, Please come back, Ethan. Don't die here. Deep inside the generator room, Ethan finished the final connection. The blast door sealed behind the survivors, securing their escape route. But now, he was trapped, and the sound of Krail claws scraping against the metal walls was getting closer. He tightened his grip on his rifle. All right, muttered to himself, come and get me. The generator room shook as the first Krail warrior forced its way inside. It was massive, its armored limbs scraping against the walls, its glowing red eyes locked on Ethan like a predator spotting prey. Behind it, more shadows moved. An entire swarm was coming. Ethan took a deep breath, steadying his heartbeat. He was outnumbered, but that wasn't new. He had faced worse and survived. He raised his rifle and opened fire. The first Krail screeched as energy rounds punched through the joints of its black exoskeleton. It fell, thrashing wildly, but two more replaced it. Plasma bolts filled the air, sparks flying with every impact. Ethan ducked behind a console, rolled, and shot again. He moved with deadly precision, every step calculated. He wasn't fighting for himself now. He was buying time for Lyra and the survivors to escape. But even as he fought, his mind wandered for a split second. Would she make it out? Would she even care if he didn't? Another roar pulled him back to reality. Krail leapt at him, its bladed limbs slashing down. Ethan sidestepped, stabbing a combat knife into the creature's neck joint. It screeched and collapsed, but the swarm kept coming. Outside in the transport bay, Lyra and the surviving guards loaded onto the last evac shuttle. Lyrian pilot looked at her nervously. We have to leave now. Lyra hesitated, her gaze fixed on the sealed blast door. She could almost feel Ethan still fighting on the other side. A storm of guilt swirled inside her. 6 years ago, she had rejected him because she believed humans were weak. Yet here he was, risking his life for her people. For her, she stepped closer to the pilot. Wait, just a little longer. You can't, the pilot protested. If the Krail breach this level, we'll be trapped. Lyra clenched her fists. Her pride was gone. All that remained was regret and a deep, aching desire to make things right. Meanwhile, Ethan's ammunition ran low. His rifle clicked empty. He tossed it aside and drew his sidearm, firing into the swarm. But the crawl were too many. One lunged and slammed him into the wall, its claw piercing his shoulder. Pain shot through his body, but he gritted his teeth and stabbed the creature in the eye, forcing it back. He knew he couldn't hold out much longer. Suddenly, a voice crackled in his gums. "Ethan, can you hear me?" It was Lyra. He almost didn't believe it. "Lyra, you're supposed to be gone." "We're still here," she said, her voice trembling. "I can't leave you." "Tell me what to do." Ethan laughed bitterly, even as he ducked another strike. "There's nothing you can do. Get on that ship and survive. That's how you repay me." "No," she said firmly. "Not this time. I won't abandon you." Before Ethan could argue, the blast door suddenly hissed open. To his shock, Lyra and two remaining guards stormed in, carrying energy rifles. They fired into the swarm, taking down several Krail in seconds. "What the hell are you doing?" Ethan shouted. "Saving you," Lyra answered, her voice steady despite the chaos. Together they fought back to back. Ethan's movements were sharp and brutal, while Lyra's were elegant but deadly. For the first time, they fought as equals, not as a human and Illyrian. But as two souls bound by survival, minutes felt like hours. But finally, the last crawl in the room fell. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by their ragged breathing. Ethan leaned against the wall, blood dripping from his shoulder. "You shouldn't have come back for me." Lyra stepped closer, her silver eyes glistening. "And you shouldn't have come back for me either, but you did." For a moment, they just stared at each other. There were no words big enough to bridge 6 years of pride, pain, and regret. Outside, the rumble of more Krail forces echoed closer. They didn't have long. Lyra turned to him, her voice soft but determined. "We can't stay here. There's still hope. There's a hidden resistance forming beyond this sector. If we join them, we can fight back. We can save more than just this city." Ethan nodded slowly. He didn't trust her completely yet, but he saw something new in her eyes. It's not arrogance, not pity. Respect. "All right," he said. "But this time, we fight together." She gave the smallest nod, almost like a silent promise. As they boarded the evac shuttle with the few survivors, Lyra glanced at Ethan one more time. "You were never weak," she whispered. And for the first time, Ethan let himself believe it. The shuttle lifted off, leaving the burning citadel behind. But this was not the end. A real war, the fight to free the galaxy from the Krail dominion, was only beginning. The shuttle soared away from the burning Lyrian capital, leaving behind a sky filled with smoke and red fire. Inside the cramped cabin, silence settled over the survivors. Some were wounded, some were trembling in shock, but all of them carried the same haunted look in their eyes. Ethan sat near the back, his shoulder wrapped in a makeshift bandage. He stared out the small window, watching the once beautiful world shrink into the distance. A part of him still couldn't believe he had gone back for Lyra. After everything she had said, after how she had rejected him, he thought he had buried those feelings forever. But seeing her again, broken, humbled, and fighting for her people, had stirred something in him he didn't want to admit. Lyra sat across from him, quiet. Her silver eyes stayed on him as if searching for the right words. She had faced death today, not once, but many times. And yet the thing that scared her most was this moment. Facing him? Finally, she broke the silence. "Ethan." He didn't turn. "What?" Her voice was soft, almost unsure. "Wait, I need to say something." Ethan exhaled slowly, still staring at the stars beyond the window. "Go on," she hesitated. For someone who had once spoken with perfect confidence, this felt harder than any speech she had given in her life. "I was wrong about you," she whispered. "I was wrong about humans. I thought strength was measured by how long we live. By power, by status. I didn't see what real strength was." Ethan glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "You were always stronger than I realized," Lyra continued. "Not because of your body, but because of your heart. You never gave up, even when the galaxy told you that you couldn't win. Even after I hurt you. Her voice trembled. I'm sorry, Ethan. Truly sorry. For a long moment, he didn't reply. She lowered her gaze, ashamed. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to trust me. But I want you to know, I regret every word I said that night. The silence stretched between them like a thin, fragile thread. Finally, Ethan spoke, his voice calm but heavy. You can't take back the past, Lyra. What's done is done, maybe. You can change what comes next. She looked up, hope flickering faintly in her eyes. Before she could speak, the shuttle's coms crackled to life. A resistance cell was transmitting coordinates to a hidden base beyond the crawl's reach. It was a small glimmer of hope in a galaxy falling apart. Ethan stood, his movements stiff but determined. We'll regroup there, he said to the crew, but this isn't over. The Crow won't stop. We have to be ready for what's coming. Lyra rose slowly, stepping closer. I want to fight with you, she said softly. Not because I feel guilty, but because I've seen the truth. Alone, my people will fall. Alone, I will fall. But with you, maybe we can win. Ethan studied her face. She wasn't the proud diplomat he had once loved from afar. She was different, now wounded, humbled, and perhaps finally honest. He thought about the man he used to be, the one who stood in her garden, holding a fragile crystal flower. That man was gone. The person standing here now had scars, experience, and a heart that had learned to endure pain. He could walk away. He could choose to leave her behind and focus only on the mission. Or he could give her a chance to prove she was truly changed. After a long silence, Ethan nodded once. All right, but understand this. This isn't about us. This is about saving lives. If you're with me, you follow my lead. Lyra's lips curved into the faintest, almost shy smile. I will. The shuttle dropped out of hyperspace, revealing a hidden moon base glowing faintly in the darkness. Other ships, human, Lyrian, and even alien races once divided were already gathering. A new alliance was forming, fragile but determined. As they landed, Ethan felt something he hadn't in years. Not love, not yet, but a quiet hope. Lyra stepped beside him as the hatch opened. The cool air of the moon base washed over them, carrying the scent of something newer birth, redemption, the promise of a fight that was far from over. Ethan, she said softly, almost like a vow. I won't fail you again. He looked at her, his expression unreadable, but there was no anger left. Only resolve. Then let's show the galaxy what humans and anyone willing to stand together can do, he said. And with that, they stepped into the unknown. For the first time, they weren't divided by pride or pain. They were united by a single purpose: to fight, to survive, and to prove that even in the darkest times, hope could still rise.